So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. Damien, you won't have Paddy today; it's just me. But hopefully, I'll still be able to brighten up your Friday with a little Rennes preview. I wanted to come on and I wanted to chat about Rennes because they're a really interesting team, and I think, to be really honest with you, that they're going to be our most formidable challenge over the preseason, and a great challenge to have coming into the new season. Yeah, we've just played Manchester United. I think the Manchester United, the 245s, the two different teams they played, and the cut of the grass and the pitch and stuff like that. I think that's a nutting game, and I think that that the club are just lucky that they came out without any injuries, and it was just more minutes in the legs. And obviously, the adaptation that Steven Gerrard talks a little bit, talks an awful lot about the fact that he wants these players to be able to adapt in the moment. That's what we're going to talk about in a moment as well, because he gave a really good interview, I think, to AVTV today. If you haven't seen it, it's on AVTV. It's about 10.5 minutes long, so you can tune into it after this. But we're going to start off by talking about that before we get on to Rennes. But I think Rennes are going to be a really, really interesting proposition when Villa do visit them on Saturday at 5 p.m. So just to let you guys know as well, we will be doing a team sheet tantrum at 3:50 on Saturday, so that's 10 minutes before the team is announced. So it'll be 3:50. And then we will be doing a post-game show at 6:55, provided that there isn't massive overrun. So almost directly after the game, we will be doing a post-match as well. And I'm really in the mood for the new season to get started, and I'm really excited. So the more content we can get, the better for you guys. And I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. So let's talk a little bit about Steven Gerrard's press conference, if you want to call it, or interview with AVTV. I think there was a lot of pieces a lot of things that he said in it that really resonated with me, and he kept on talking about adaptability when he was talking about the trip down under, the trip to Australia. He mentioned obviously the pitches weren't the best, but they had to adapt to it. He mentioned that Townsville was a different experience, and he wanted to take players out of their comfort zones of being in Brisbane and then being in Perth. He said he'd been in Sydney and places like in Melbourne before, and he wanted to take them out of their comfort zone to a place like Townsville. It wasn't as populous, and to see how the players reacted. And he said it was really good from a team building point of view. Certain things didn't go their way on the trip. He didn't elaborate with what they were. I presume that means, weather-wise and things like that. But he said that the whole team had to figure that out together, and that was a really interesting thing that he said. So he's very much about challenging the players, which I would expect no less of Steven Gerrard. I think that if I was Steven Gerrard's son or daughter, and I went to him and I said, Dad, help me out with my maths homework, I think he'd challenge me. He wouldn't give me the answer. He wouldn't show me the answer. He'd make me come up with the answer. He comes across as that kind of guy. I'd say he's a hard taskmaster, but he's hard in a way whereby he's almost like a lot of managers don't have this. How am I going to put it? It's almost like there has to be a goal out of everything you do, and he comes across as being that driven kind of person where he wouldn't give anything to anybody for free. And I think that the same thing goes when you listen to him talk and when you listen to him speak about what he expects of his players and what he expects from them on the training field and outside the training field and so on. So I get that kind of feeling from him. Comment in the comments below if you get a different feeling from him. But I think he did speak as well in this interview about how he had to make some difficult decisions, and he's getting his feet under the table. And he spoke an awful lot about the different kind of mindsets that he had to have and how to be respectful of the dynamic of the team when he went on to speak about the captaincy. And when he did speak about the captaincy, he said, look, that 8 months ago when he came in, the remit was to guide people away from had to guide people away from the relegation zone. Sorry, I got distracted there. To guide people away from the relegation zone first, and to come in and to start having an open, almost audition or trial for a new captain then wouldn't have been beneficial to team dynamic. Makes 100% sense. Everybody would agree that makes 1,000,000% sense. He did say quite early on, though, that the captaincy would be something he would review over time. And obviously he has done, and he has had, he has installed John McGinn as captain. He went on then to speak about why he's installed John McGinn as captain, and I was really interested in this, not from the point of view of that literally what almost 100% of what myself and 100% of what myself and Paddy's opinions were with regards to why certain players were picked. He almost said word for word, but it was interesting to see that he spoke about, like we did as well, we spoke about the leadership group. I think it was always going to be leadership group when he named the 3 players that he named, and then he actually sprung a surprise and named the 4th player that I might have missed in the comms that came out from the club, but Diego Carlos wasn't mentioned anywhere in that comms. I could be wrong, I could be blind, I might have missed it, but Diego Carlos was something. It was a new nugget of information that he's like a second vice captain within the team. So that is something that is true, that is new to light, and I think that it kind of gives us a real insight as to he's looking for big dominant players to be the backups. You couldn't have Diego Carlos as captain right now. He doesn't speak the language. It's arguable that John McGinn speaks the language. I saw somebody say that on Twitter recently. It's arguable that John McGinn speaks the language, but still, he's a better grasp of it than Diego Carlos. But he did mention, he said, listen, look, nobody's place is guaranteed. Whether that's a reaction to social media, whether that's a reaction to whatever, but I think it was a sincere piece when he said that nobody's place is guaranteed. And if you think that Steven Gerrard is a rollover, tickle your belly type guy, you probably haven't watched him play football, or you haven't watched him in an interview or anything like that. And yes, he could be faking it, but he's done nothing to convince me that he has massive favorites from the point of view of people are absolutely 1,000,000% undroppable regardless of form, and he more or less said that within the interview as well, which I thought was really good to hear. A couple of guys are saying there that within Townsville that Gerrard had cockroaches in his room. Poor, I didn't think a poor cockroach would have scared Steven Gerrard. That's what your shoes are for, isn't it? It would have been worse if it was a huntsman spider. Grow up here, Stephen. Oh, I'm after losing my monitor. There it is. It's back again. But it was I think it's an interesting one, I suppose, really, that he's brought in somebody like Diego Carlos and immediately brought him on the leadership team. He also went on and he said exactly what we said about Tyrone Mings. He said that Tyrone Mings there's been a lot spoken about him. There's been a big spotlight on him. Being an English international, he mentioned that there was a spotlight on him prior to when he joined the club. That was something that was kind of left out there. If I was in the room, I would have asked him to clarify that. What was the reason there? It kind of sounded like a really kind of odd comment to me. He said there was a big spotlight on him prior to me coming to the club, and I was kind of going, elaborate on that now, please, if you wouldn't mind. But because it just seemed like it was. I think it was more than a throwaway comment. But anyway, I don't know what the reason for it was. Probably something to do with the Euros. I don't know. But anyway, he said that he just basically took him out of the spotlight. That's what it's for. And he said that Tyrone Mings has and I loved what he said here as well, because it shows how much of a hard taskmaster he is. That he said the early signs, the early reactions that Tyrone Mings has had have been absolutely fantastic and unbelievably professional. And I love the way he said that. It was kind of a case of, yeah, Tyrone, it's all well and good putting out the Twitter post, but if you start acting the maggot and start, if anything changes from here on in, I'm going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. Look, I'm not saying it in those exact words, but it was kind of interesting the way he said the early indications are that he's taking this one on the chin. Then he went into his own preamble about how he took over from Sami Hyypiä as well. So all in all, I thought it was a really interesting interview. I thought he came across as somebody who is beginning. He came across as somebody who's kind of getting into that kind of war mentality for the season. It might sound stupid, it might sound hyperbolic or whatever, but he came across as this guy who's kind of going, right, I'm going to start finding reasons for fire in my belly for this season, and now is the time for me to bring what I'm famous for, his determination and everything like that. And his leadership qualities. He really looked like he was gearing himself up from a mentality side of things for the season as well within that interview. So I liked it all in all. I liked it. There was A comment there as well from somebody who did say it. Philly, yeah, Philly said, I think I read that Critchley wasn't on the tour of Australia, and not ideal if true. No, Critchley didn't go. Critchley wasn't, as far as I'm aware, Critchley wasn't supposed to go to Australia, and he stayed at home with the and kind of ran all the games that the under 23s and stuff like that were playing, in the likes of Amar Ghazi and Shikari Chukwemeka, running all those. He ran all those back in Bodymore. As far as I'm aware, and from what I've seen and what I've heard, Critchley was never supposed to go because they needed somebody back at base. If that makes sense, because a lot of the plans were put in place prior to him coming to the club as well. Right, so Rennes. Let's take a look at Rennes. I said there at the start that Rennes are going to be the hardest proposition I think that we'll have, for a lot of reasons. Rennes were, I'm not going to say they were a surprise package, but I think they finished higher than people would have thought they would have finished in La Liga, in Ligue 1 last season. Finished fourth, and for a lot of the season they were up in third, and they were pushing. They were, and just as I was trying to bring up the league table there, because I couldn't remember how many goals they scored. I think they scored 82 goals last season. So that'll tell you the prowess that they had in front of goal. They are managed by a really interesting character called Bruno Genesio. Is that how you pronounce it? Genesio, I think it is. Yeah, they scored 82 goals last season. They had a positive plus 42 goal difference, and they were only 3 points off Monaco in third place. Now they finished like Monaco, Marseille, and Paris Saint-Germain were the head of the table there, but they were only 3 points off getting into the Champions League last season. But they did score an awful lot of goals. They were kind of like ourselves. They either won or they lost. They only drew 6 games last season. They lost 12. They won 20. So they were very similar to us in that aspect, whereby they either only won or they lost, really, which was interesting. But I think that the biggest kind of, how will I put it? The biggest kind of plus point for Rennes last season was the way that they attacked, because, as I said, 82 goals that they scored last season was quite impressive. Their attacking shape, they kind of play between two very set formations. They play your traditional 4-4-2, or at times they play 4-1-4-1 as well. And they were 37% of the time last season they were in a 4-4-2, and then whatever I think it was 28% they were in a 4-1-4-1, and then there was obviously other formations they played in transitions for the rest of the time. 4-3-3 I think was another one. They had about 12% of the time in 4-3-3. So we're not going to get bogged down in that, but essentially what we're going to expect for them is they're going to play an awful lot of ball through San Martina. They're going to play a lot of ball through him in the middle of the field. He's actually a really nice player, and he's somebody that Baptiste Santa Maria. Sorry, he's somebody who's about 27 years of age. He's somebody that was linked with Premier League clubs. I think he was linked with. Could have been linked with someone like Palace. He was linked with Fulham. He's been linked with making a move to the Premier League, but he's one of those real kind of metronome players, those players that get into the middle of midfield. And he's played at a lot of clubs. He played in Rennes, I say, since 2021, and he played in the Bundesliga for Freiburg prior to that. But nice little player. He's somebody that you're going to see an awful lot on the ball over the course of the over the course of the game. A lot of the ball does go through him. They have a couple of speed merchants up front with the likes of Jeremy Doku. People will see him. He's going to be out in the wing. They do play very, very expansive. They do play very wide. And when the ball comes back to their goalkeeper, when he picks up that ball, he is going to, Alfred Gomez is his name, he's a Senegalese goalkeeper. You're going to see everybody just pull to the side. It's almost an interest. How am I going to put it? They pull to the side, and we're going to see that Ollie Watkins, and let's just say it's Ollie Watkins and it is Danny Ings the start up front. I personally don't think it's going to be that. We will go into what I think it will be in a moment. But we will see that they might be stuck in the middle on their own, kind of looking for someone to pick up or trying to block space. But the fullbacks will be so far wide, and the centre halves will go so far wide as well. It looks really weird. It gives an opportunity then for the centre halves or for the two centre forwards to try and take up the centre halves and midfield to come back. And that's where Baptiste Santa Maria comes in. He comes straight through and he really plays that pivot position really, really well. So the centre halves pull wide, the full backs go a small bit further forward, and they go like it becomes a really expansive look when they're building up, specifically from the back. They have a guy up front as well called Martin Terrier. I'm going to call him Terrier just because I think it's funny, but obviously he's going to be pronounced Terrier, I presume, considering he's French. But he's somebody that Liverpool were looking at. He's 25 years of age. I know a lot of big teams were looking at him. Liverpool were looking at him. I think Arsenal were looking at him. There was a couple of teams in Serie A were looking at him as well. 6 foot, kind of plays as a kind of a false nine, second striker type guy. He's going to be somebody that a lot of ball is going to go through for him. Go through him, should I say? If I'm not mistaken, he might have been their top scorer last season. He's got quite a few goals anyway last season. I'm just trying to check. Yeah, 21 goals in 46 appearances across all competitions last season. Previously played with Lyon. And since he moved to Rennes for 12 million, he's been pretty much a revelation for them. He's been fantastic. So he's somebody that we're going to look out for as well. Gaetan Laborde and Serhu Gurasi are going to be people that you're going to want to look out for as well, because they're going to drop between the two lines. They're going to come. So when Rennes play, they're going to be people who are going to pick up the ball an awful lot in midfield as well, and then you're going to look for overloads. Then on the outside with the two fullbacks are going to run. Those guys will be coming back into midfield. So what they try and do is they're very much a team that tries to isolate and overload on one side of the field, get overlaps going. And what they like to have is at times they like to attack with massive numbers. So it looks like they're attacking with massive numbers, but they've got people who you might think might be more forward-looking players are filtering back, and then their fullbacks and their wingers are flying forward. And what they like to do then is get those overlaps going, get the ball in behind, and then you just see a complete another turn of positioning from their strikers as well. So that's why they like to play with people like Doku, people like Terrier up front, and up top, is because they have the pace and that they have this they have the engine to be able to do this back to front and front to back type of movement when they are trying to isolate people and create a higher line and pull people out the field as well. So it's something that Rennes are going to like to do. They're a nice team. They're a really nice team. You're going to see tons and tons of width. You're going to see them, as I say, their base formations are 4-4-2 or 4-1-4-1. When they attack as well, you will see that they will drop into a 3-2-5 at times, because, as I say, they're all about width and kind of overloading that midfield with people filtering back in there. But they do attack in the traditional 4-4-2 as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they shape up against Aston Villa. They've actually just been in the news today as well. They've signed 2 new players, and they signed 2 new centre halves. I would imagine both of them won't see any game time at the weekend. But Joe Rodon from Spurs has moved on loan with a view to a permanent move to Rennes, and they've also signed a centre half from Bologna as well. Tete, I think his name is. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but 2 new centre halves have come in for Rennes over the course of the last few days as well. Pretty decent at set pieces. And we're going to see tons and tons of movement. Their set pieces, I think, are going to be really interesting for somebody like Aston McPhee. They overload in the middle like we do as well, and then it's all about movement. So if you see some kind of weird and wonderful setups for our set pieces that maybe don't go to plan, you might see exactly the same with Rennes. They like to be very, very creative on set pieces, and they like to kind of, as I say, filter all the big bodies into one area and then break with movement and try and get around, crowding the 6-yard box. Specifically, they like to do that, and then they like to maybe line their players up on the penalty spot in one big group and then break from there. So very, very disciplined in the set piece. But as we know ourselves, you can be as disciplined as you want. If the corner kick taker doesn't get it smack on the money, well, then sometimes it can look a small bit silly, but it's something that they do focus on, and there's tons of movement in the box. So don't be surprised if we see referees blowing it up to have words with people during corners from both sides, as I think there's going to be some scuffles at corners at the weekend for sure. Yeah, so that's what we're going to see from Rennes, I think, at the weekend, which is going to be interesting. I think they're going to be a different type of team, and a team that we will kind of learn a lot from ourselves and how we defend and how we try and get at them as well. When we're in full flow in the Premier League next season. And I see this comment as well, Bruno Genesio. Yeah, absolutely, he was the guy Remy Gard wanted to bring to the club with him, and if memory doesn't let me down. I'm almost certainly ended up at Lyon at that time, and he was at Lyon, and no, actually, I think he ended up at Lyon. I think that's who he went to at that stage. But anyway, he does have a he spent a long time at Lyon after that. I think he was there till 2019. So yeah, somebody who's got an awful lot of experience in the bank. Let's take a little look here at some of your comments there. Let's see. Yeah, there's Mark Brennigan saying, according to Ashley Priest, Gerrard issues cockroaches in his room in Townsville. I wasn't too happy. True Magpie says, shrewd move by Steven Gerrard to unburden Mings from captaincy duty. Should Mings go through bad patch of form, then it's far less an issue to have him out of the team. I agree 100%. Karpal Singh says that Diego will be a beast for us. I absolutely think so. I think he's got that nastiness that we said when he signed that the club needs. Sai says, hopefully the captaincy plus having Kamara behind him turns McGinn into McGinn Esta. Yeah, I'm not one of the people who thinks that McGinn is I would still have him in my midfield. Like, we don't have many better players than him in midfield at the moment. So until we do get better players, McGinn starts in my midfield. Like, he's a better player than Douglas Luiz. He's a better player than Sanson. He's a better player than, I got to say it, he's better at his job than Jacob Ramsey at this moment in time. So, like, why do you drop players when you don't have better players instead? So I agree with you, and it's all, I think what I mean by this side is that I mean that it's all about him pushing on now, and I 100% agree with you in that point. Absolutely 100% agree. Gerrard said he's not finished in the transfer market. Yes, Ibrahim Sangare. I've an Ibrahim Sangare video done for the last bloody 6 or 7 weeks. I must release it just because I haven't done anything like that in a while, and I'm itchy for stuff like that. But he would be an absolute banger of a signing should we get him, but there's a lot of noses sniffing at that trough at the moment, so we will see. Villa Bloke 1970 says, apparently refs are going to be harsher this season. Just hope Carlos doesn't get targeted. The guy looks a beast up the Villa. Well, if they do start targeting people like Carlos, then I would imagine people like Ben Mee, I would imagine people like Michael Keane. You know, there's a lot of centre halves out there that are a bit chesty, if that makes sense, and handsy and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think it would just be Diego Carlos, but as you say, he's also coming from another league where he probably looked like a right hard man, given that some of the flop merchants that play in La Liga out there now. Not that the Premier League is any better, but you know, we'll see if his reputation precedes him when referees start pinging him, or if they start pinging him over the course of the season, for sure. Sniffrat, you encountered a huntsman spider last week. Creepy, yeah, well, better you than me. I would be cowering in the corner if there was a huntsman anywhere near me. Yeah, not a fan of any arachnids. Not me, not at all. Well, I'm not too bad as long as I can kill him. I'm definitely not one of these people that, put the jar over him and bring him out and release him outside. There's millions more of them than there are us. So I'm okay with arachnocide every so often, or pretty much every time I see them. So I hope I don't lose too many followers for that. Definitely I'm in contravention of the Cruelty to Spiders Act, if there is one out there, for sure. Rob Henry says, I think the captain and vice captain appointments are more about giving players a lift rather than anything negative for Tyrone Mings. Tyrone Mings has had the role for a long time, absolutely, and he did mention that it was a leadership group, and he could only give, Steven Gerrard said, he mentioned there was a leadership group, he could only give titles to so many people. So I think that Tyrone Mings is definitely in that leadership group for sure, and as I said, they just switched around the titles to new people. Where are we? Anything else? Kahua says the Critchley didn't go due to a passport issue. Well, that makes sense. But I don't think it's a massive issue either way. It would have been great to have him down there, but I think a lot of the game planning and stuff like that was being done anyway prior to his appointment. Yes, he will have input into it, but you'll have 2 or 3 weeks anyway, you know, or 2 weeks, should I say, prior to the season starting, to fine-tune anything that he sees there as well. And I'm sure there was video call after conference. I'm sure he was in all the meetings via some sort of telecommunication. So, you know, the distance, the only thing for me would be that And even not being at the sessions, I would imagine that a lot of the sessions were probably recorded, so they could look back at majority of any of the things they're implementing. So I've no doubt that Neil Critchley was able to do his homework on all the players as time went on and offer his input as well. Thank God for the internet. It makes things an awful lot easier with regards to communication. So I'm just going to park the comments there for a moment. With regards to this game at the weekend, I know a lot of people are expecting our lineup to be the lineup that goes out against Bournemouth. And I'd love to have Paddy on at the moment, because my question to him would be, why does this lineup have to be the lineup that goes out against Bournemouth? I'm not sure. I think I'm at the stage whereby I don't think it really matters. I don't think it really matters if this team gets 45 minutes, if the lineup gets 45 minutes or 60 minutes together before Bournemouth. I think there's a lot made of it from a chemistry point of view. But when I look at this team, we're going to probably be playing with only two new players. One of them is a centre half, and granted, I think that the centre half partnership that starts this will be the centre partnership that starts against Bournemouth. But I think there's changes you can make in the first 11, because I think it's more about individual partnerships as opposed to the full 11 playing together. And what I mean by that is that it's like the team has played together for the last year. So I don't think that the chemistry is as big a deal as it would have been if we brought in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 new players this season. So while we might start 10 or 9 of the team that we want to start against Bournemouth, I wouldn't get too bogged down if there's somebody, like, let's just say he starts and then Buendia's on the bench. Or sorry, starts and Philippe Coutinho's on the bench. All things are unlikely. It's unlikely Coutinho's on the bench, or Bailey's on the bench, or someone like that. I don't think that precludes him from playing different players against Bournemouth. So I'm going to put that out there, and I'm going to say it again in the team sheet tantrum tomorrow, that I won't be trying to read the tea leaves in this team. It could very well be the first 11, but I'm not going to be having panic attacks if there's somebody in there that I feel shouldn't be in there tomorrow. And I think that's a sensible way to look at it, because I think that the team is used to playing with each other. It's been a pretty settled team over the last 2 or 3 years. It's been a pretty settled team since our second year in the league. Yes, Danny Ings and Watkins probably need to play together, but I don't think he's going to play two strikers. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. I think that Mings and Carlos will be the centre half partnership. I won't believe, I've no problem with any other partnership, but I'll believe it when I see it if Chambers starts day one, is what I'll say, because I think that Tyrone Mings just has a lot of goodwill built up in the bank, and I think that and everyone here might say, oh, but you're dropping him because he makes mistakes. Lads, he's got a massive sample set, and he's a lot closer to getting on that plane to Qatar than Callum Chambers. I'm not saying that Callum Chambers is bad, but I think that for me, if I was the captain, I think to strip someone of the captaincy and drop them all in one move, I don't know how that goes down with anybody at the club. So I think it's just going to be Mings and Carlos. And then it's up to Tyrone Mings to stay in the team. I think that's the way it's going to be. I think obviously our fullbacks are going to pick themselves. I think our midfield is probably going to pick itself as well. Although I could see somebody like Jacob Ramsey given a rest against Rennes and maybe brought on. Or maybe you could see somebody like a Sanson come in there, or a Douglas Luiz, and that's why I'm saying our starting 11. There might be 1 or 2 tweaks from that point of view, because they need to get these guys. They need to get everybody time, and Jacob Ramsey's had a lot of football even over the summer, and he hasn't sparked, I suppose, in preseason either. Not that there's anything wrong with him, no doubts about him or anything like that, but maybe they just give him half an hour at the end of the game or something like that. And then I think everybody's going to be looking to see who they start up front, in the front 3 positions. I'm not even going to hazard a guess. I think it's time for us to have a conversation about playing the Buendia, Coutinho and Watkins up top. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. If I was tasked with picking the team in the morning, that's what I would pick. And then I would have Ings, Bailey to come off the bench, and Archer if needed. If we wanted to put 2 up top, I would have Archer to come off the bench. But I think the smart money, I think what everybody would like to see is Coutinho and Buendia start together, see if they can play together, and at least get some sort of a view of it But I think we're probably too far into preseason to see that on Saturday. So that's really going to be the lottery, I think, is who starts in the front three positions. But it's going to be exciting, and whoever Gerrard starts there will have people breathing down their necks as well. It's going to be an interesting one. Where else are we? Yes, that's right. Mark, Gerrard also mentioned there would be 2 more behind closed door friendlies to get 90 minutes in the whole squad. One against Liverpool, I think, and one against Fulham. So that's what I think. The Fulham one is the Sunday after the Bournemouth game, if I'm not mistaken. That they're played Fulham in a friendly after the Bournemouth game. And once again, I think that is huge to do with trying to ascertain people within the squad and trying to see. It could even be to allow scouting sessions for other people to come and take a look at players. You wouldn't know what way it goes these days. Or putting stuff down on tape so that they can they can maybe put themselves in shop windows, because the club does need to start chipping players out. It really does. Like there's at least 3 players I think that aren't long for the road at Aston Villa, and the club needs to get that money back from them. It was an interesting piece yesterday as well. You guys might have read that the club have. It's funny that Barcelona sell off 25 years of their TV rights, or 25% of their TV rights for 25 years. And there's a big hullabaloo about it. Yet all the clubs in England mortgage and take loans out against their TV rights for two and three every 2 or 3 years, just because they don't sell a 25-year right guarantee or whatever. But it's really interesting the way certain things are labelled. But whether you agree with what Barcelona are doing or whether you don't, that's a podcast for a completely different podcast and a completely different day. But Aston Villa leveraged a loan for day-to-day cash flow against their TV revenue, I think, for the next 2 years, which is something a lot of other clubs do, just to keep them liquid and keep them cash rich, as opposed to being asset rich, so that you don't have to, mid-season start pumping massive amounts of money like the owners have been doing over the last few years. It allows the club to stay fluid, and by no means does it mean the club is in any financial difficulty or anything. It's just a smart way of doing things to keep handy money at hand should anything be needed during the course of the season. So if any of you guys don't follow, oh gosh, what's his name? Kieran Maguire from the Price of Football podcast. He's a genius at all this stuff, and I could listen to him all day long. He has a piece on it on Twitter. Go find it. And it's a really interesting one as well. All right, guys, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. I know there's 1,001 comments in there, guys. I'm so sorry. I think we even have West Ham fans in there as well. I think we even have, Paddy is in the comments, but I think Paddy's supposed to be working, so I don't want to get him fired. I'm sitting at home on paternity leave for the next 4 weeks, so that's why I can hop on at 1:30, free as a bird. But I don't want to get Paddy fired by by dragging him onto a podcast in the middle of when he's supposed to be working. So so there is that. Right, guys, I think I'm going to leave it at that. We're on for about 33 minutes. We'll be back again tomorrow, and Paddy will be with us at 10 to 4. For the team sheet tantrum, and it's going to be a really interesting one. It's going to be one that's going to get us excited. I think that's the last one we have before we go full on balls to the wall into the season for what's going to be a really fast first half of the season. Then you're going to have the Qatar break for the World Cup, and then a second kind of rapid fire end to the season as well. So it's going to be full of bluster and trust and bluster, should I say, for a couple of weeks once the season gets underway, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching. If you could give this a thumbs up and like it, if you could share it, if there's any way of sharing it, that would be really cool. Get us out there, and we're approaching 3,500 subscribers on YouTube. If you're not following us on Twitter, we're approaching 5,000 followers on Twitter as well. They're just cool little kind of milestones that would be nice to reach at some stage during the season. So if you think of anybody out there that might interest, let us know, or let them know, should I say, and get them onto the podcast. We'd really appreciate it. I will have news on Monday or Tuesday about merchandise for 100%. And I keep on teasing this. I know, Vinny, you're in there and you're screaming for it, but Monday or Tuesday we'll have some. There will be a post up on it. The lad that I'm getting to do stuff is just on holidays at the moment, so he's agreed to it. But I just want to get any of the proof stuff done, and then some merchandise may be coming your way if you guys so wish to help the podcast that way. Going to leave you go. Have a great rest of your Friday. Enjoy it. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 10 to 4. And until then, everybody stay safe. And all that's left to say is up the Villa.